Welcome to Voice of San Diego at Home. It is September 9th, 2020. It's my wife's birthday. I got to get through this. Try to be a good husband. This guy, more relevant than ever, feels like this isn't just a metaphor anymore. Feels like we're literally sitting in front of the flames, telling everybody it's fine. That's my whole job. My kids, employees, everybody, just kind of tell them every day that it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. We can get through this. It's obviously not fine. There's a lot of big problems. But we are going to talk about city politics today. Today is for city politics geeks, the people who want to get into it with us. This is Voice of San Diego. This is pure rock Voice of San Diego content today. This is the good stuff. This is the pure stuff. But we're going to start with breaking news. Breaking news. This is law360.com. Had the first one to get the news. There's been some tweets since then. Never heard of law360.com. Probably my fault. The California Supreme Court declined on Wednesday to take a case in which lower courts have found only a simple majority of voters was necessary to pass a 2018 San Francisco corporate tax ballot measure. You may not have understood any of that. That's fine. But just basically, to get a tax passed in San Diego, in California, you have to get 2/3 of the vote if it's for something specific. So if you want to raise a tax to, say, build a stadium or a convention center, something like that, or just use it specifically for cops or something like that, you have to get 2/3 of the vote to pass. Now, if you just want to give the government more money, you only need to give a majority of voters only need to give their approval to it. That's, it's kind of backwards in a way to make it harder when it's more clear where the money's actually going to go. That's on purpose. They want to make it hard. They wanted to make it hard starting in 1978 and then evolving in other measures. They wanted to make it really hard to pass taxes. But a few years ago, in a case called Upland, they made the argument in a separate way that basically was accepted by the court, the Supreme Court of California, that said that citizens' initiatives don't fall within the California constitutional requirement that you need 2/3, that also includes the requirement of 2/3 vote to pass a special tax. In other words, citizens can get together, do a petition, put something on the ballot, raise taxes with only a majority of support from voters. That case, now, the argument that actually affected specific tax increases was what San Francisco was testing. The Supreme Court appears to have said, nah, you're good. You can pass a tax like that with the Citizens Initiative with only a bare majority support from voters. That has implications, of course, for the city of San Diego, which in March got 5% of the vote for a hotel room tax measure, but they didn't get 2/3, but it was a Citizens Initiative. Citizens Initiative, pretty much because they wanted to see if this legal argument worked. It appears as though it may have, and that hotel room tax, which we wrote all the obituaries about, might be alive. It is literally the zombie tax. It's dying and then it's back, and it might be really back, or it might not. We have a guest today, special guest, Chief of Staff for Mayor Kevin Faulconer in the city of San Diego. We have a whole 2 pages of questions for her. We got more from you. Welcome to Aimee Faucett. Aimee, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Scott?
Very good. Thanks for joining Voice of San Diego at Home, the most popular public affairs live stream that airs at 5 p.m. on Wednesday and Fridays. Thank you very much. We're going to get right into it. What did you guys, are you guys buzzing about this news about the 2/3 versus majority? Did the hotel room tax pass?
Well, according to this ruling, it sounds like it did. It's great because we did operate as if it was a 2/3, which we were less than 1% away from doing the 2/3. But we're very optimistic about this court ruling. Obviously, we have to drill down on what that means, which we will be joining with the coalition partners to determine what that looks like. Who's going to call the fact that because this ruling happened, that now is official for the city of San Diego's Measure C.
Well, so now you guys have sometimes taken issue with my description that this was set up as a citizens initiative precisely for this potential outcome. Isn't that mostly true?
I believe it was part of the discussions amongst the coalition partners that with this, when Upland came through and the California Supreme Court opined on Upland before the San Francisco, they had said that, a citizens initiative would only have a majority. So the coalition did decide from a strategic perspective, but it also was going to cost a lot of money because they needed to go out and collect signatures in order to do that.
Yeah, because the city council can put something on the ballot more or less for free or using the city's funds to fund the ballot. But when you make it a citizens initiative, yes, you're basically paying people to go out, collect the signatures. We all know how that went. Little rough.
Yes.
Little rough.
Everything about the expansion of the convention center and getting Measure C passed for homeless in streets and the expansion has been rough.
Yeah, yeah, to say the least. We'll see.
I'm the first to admit it.
All right, so you've been the chief of staff for Mayor Kevin Faulconer since when? When did that start?
July 2017. So we're a little past 3 years.
Okay. All right. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's start with the drama du jour. Every summer in San Diego, there's some drama, like there's some kind of thing going through. I was really glad that with everything going on with the world burning, contagion, economic catastrophe, we still got a San Diego summer drama. And this one is 101 Ash Street. You weren't on staff when this was purchased, right? When this deal was made.
No, I was not. No, I was not.
So you have a little bit of freedom to kind of reflect on this.
Yes, right. I can reflect on all the emails I've read.
All right. Let's see. First of all, let's explain the basics real quick. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, the city of San Diego has a lot of employees, many of whom don't work in a city hall. A lot of them rented space. After the city decides that it doesn't want to do a new city hall, the decision's made to really pursue new leases for the cities. They can save for these employees so they can save money, have longer term plans, all that stuff. When it comes down to some of the deal making that goes on, they realize that Sempra has left this building, 101 Ash Street. They say, let's move city employees into there. There's a conversation about buying it. It doesn't quite come together. Then a middle man, an entity called Sistera, comes in, buys the building, and then leases to own it to the city. I'm all good on all that mostly?
Yep.
Okay. So at the heart of a lot of the drama and questions, so ever since then, you weren't able to move city employees in there. You did briefly. It was a big mess getting them out. Now there's estimates $100, $150, $200 million to get it up to shape because of the asbestos situation. Basically, and then last week, the city decides to stop paying on the lease, to stop making those payments. We'll get into that in a second. So it's a big tire fire of a situation for the city. But at the heart of a lot of the questions with this deal is one question in particular. Why did the city lease to own this building as opposed to just buying it? Why are we always leasing to own these things? Do you have any idea why? Again, you weren't necessarily in charge then, but do you have any idea why they chose that path?
I actually don't, and we're trying to still drill down on that, and that's what our forensic review with Hugo Parker, and we also have Procopio and Burke Williams that are all drilling down into these details. And there were three options essentially on the table for the city. You could purchase a building, you could do a lease to purchase. That was the second. And then the third was you can continue leasing space downtown, at which at the time of the market, per square foot to rent space was going through the roof. So it was the middle option that the city ended up going with. I have heard things that it was a timing issue relating to the bond markets. I have heard that there was litigation that was threatened to Sistera from the owner that they were doing business with. And other than that, I have not been able to, nor has the investigators have figured out why that decision was made.
Okay. It's the subject of some speculation. Obviously, we wrote a story that part of the city's reluctance may have been related to their reluctance to buy outright another building right next to City Hall, this center, the Civic Center Plaza. That building, we found some evidence that their reluctance was because of a legal threat that was kind of hanging over the city at that time. Corey Briggs was making the argument, and I think there was logic to it, that the city charter says you can't borrow money without getting a vote of the people. You didn't get a vote of the people. You can't borrow money to make these buildings or buy these buildings or build stuff. That was part of what it seemed like went into this. But then last week, NBC came out with a story that said there might be another reason why the city decided to lease to own instead of purchase outright the building. It said that, and it made a lot of insinuations that might have been because the building appraisal had come in too low and thus they couldn't get financing for it. Before I move on into how that got kind of weird with the reporting with the document, they said they got that from an investigation. Is that your understanding of or part of what it might have gone into it?
No, I think that, first of all, I think that this whole situation with 101 Ash has been like peeling back the layers of an onion. And once you figure something out, you go another direction and you find something else had happened. There has been no proof that any of these scenarios have taken place. Am I going to say that maybe they did or didn't? I don't know. But I know that none of that has come to light relating to why the city went with a lease to own versus an outright owning of it. So.
Okay. So fair enough.
Sorry, I forgot one more
please.
thing. So the other part of it is that there are some, as there's been a lawsuit filed mainly against Hystera and Sandy Shapery, the previous owner, but as well in the minimal names the city in it, that states that there is a debt issue that also relating to bonds, which is similar to what you've heard. And so there's also some other issues relating to the legality of the lease that the city is looking into. But right now, the lawsuit that's out there is from Micah Geary relating to, and I believe he mentions on the city's being with the part that you mentioned about the debt.
Yeah.
Debt limitations.
I want to get into that. I think there's some things to peel back there. Let's stick with this for a second. This question about this report. So basically, NBC reports on this report. In the report, there's this supposed footnote 15. Mm-hmm. Footnote 15 says this, basically, that Todd Glory was part of this pressure campaign to get the deal done, regardless of some inconvenient facts with the appraisal. And then it says, a few other things about that. But then, and just to be clear, we have, this is what they reported. We have that here. This is the supposed footnote 15. Now, the weirdest thing I've seen happen in one of these summer dramas happens after that story comes out, and the city attorney and the law firm that supposedly wrote that came out and said, no, we didn't write that. And in fact, every part of that, we don't know where that comes from. Basically alleging that somebody doctored that. You guys probably buzzed about this in the mayor's office a little bit. What is your take? Is that a real pullout of that report?
Well, let me just back up a bit. So when we had to move the employees out of the building, unfortunately, the mayor called for a forensic review. Right. You could call it an investigation. That's a little bit more of a sensational definition of what the forensic review is. So we brought on Hugo Parker. City Council voted for Hugo Parker's contract. The purpose of that forensic review was to do an internal look at the city as to what exactly happened and how the city ended up in the contract it did, and how did it end up having such major issues with asbestos and doing things to the building. That was the mayor calling for that, because we needed to, one, in order to go forward, we have to figure out what exactly happened. And second of all, we don't want to repeat those mistakes again. As the mayor's chief of staff, I have been a part of many, many, many discussions, and 101 Ash does take up a lot of time. And I will say I am not familiar, and I have seen nothing relating to that footnote or anything about that footnote. I also think that Burke Williams is a very reputable firm. They're very well known, and I don't think we should take it lightly that the law firm not only said in a public letter that they don't know anything about it, but they also went ahead and signed under perjury of law affidavits. And I think that that's something that we really need to take seriously. I don't think putting these things out there, at the end of the day, we do have to make sure that the taxpayers are protected. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, NBC is sticking by the story. It's a fascinating drama. On the one hand, either somebody did doctor this and it was published and it's going to be part of this mayoral campaign discussion, or on the other hand, this law firm is involved in a bananas cover-up and fabrication of its own, and now is all twisted up in denial. So both of those options again are bananas. So yes. I think we.
It's silly season. We've got an election going on.
This is a little sillier than normal, though. This is a lot of people.
World.
Yeah, the world is definitely really weird.
So why would the election be any different?
True. Silly season is 2020, definitely. But so yeah, this was the story that NBC did. 101. So that's that part. That second phrase there is what got Councilman Todd, or former Assemblyman Todd Gloria,
yes,
really fired up. He wants that retracted. Standoff is really interesting to watch. But so you kind of hedged there. Are you basically not allowed to talk about the report?
Well, the report is confidential. It is attorney-client privilege, of which the city council has not waived. So
okay, so that would be the city council. Okay,
yes.
So that would be the city council's job.
Well, they do if it's brought to closed session and is agendized, the council can discuss and determine whether they will release any document that is under attorney-client privilege.
Okay, why isn't that happening?
Which these documents are attorney-client privilege.
Sure. Why hasn't that happened yet, though? Like, it feels like that would be one way to sort of solve this issue, is to let us all look at the report. If there's another footnote that's like formatted exactly like that was lifted out or something, it would be interesting to read. And we're all kind of like, why either NBC won't release it and you guys won't release it? What we kind of like to see it. Can we see it?
Sure, of course. Well, we can't release it until the council has an opportunity, if they do choose to review it, release it. But also, in fairness to the council, they have just been on ledge recess and just came back this week. So in fairness to them, and the story just broke last week. So I think that everybody just needs to, we need to get our bearings. We need to figure out what's going on. And I think that
we need to go now.
Trust me, I want to know who did it too.
I need it all. I need it in my brain. And you just hook it up to an IV and
I totally get it. I'm a political junkie too, so I get it.
Okay, let's get into this other part. We've got a lot to talk about before I let you go. We're already burning through time here.
I know, and you have a birthday to get to.
Yeah, burning through time. But last week, you guys decided to stop paying Sistera for this building. Now, there was a guy named Sandy Shapery owned the building. He ended up getting some money from a guy named Doug Manchester to own part or half the building, a little more than half the building. They're like, let's city buy this building from us. City's like, nah. Then Sistera comes in, buys the building from both of them. You're making the payments to Sistera, but it seems like Sistera, as you mentioned, got money to pay the Sandy Shapery and these other guys from investors. We don't know who those are. Is that correct?
Well, we do know who they are. I mean, it's a firm, a fund, a pension fund. I think it's a pension fund. It's a group out of the East Coast. So I don't know who they are. So I've never met them.
There's a pension fund on the East Coast that the city of San Diego has basically decided to stop paying rent 2, correct?
So let me
Well, to
back up.
Sistera.
Let me back up. So we have our lease with Sistera.
Huh?
Sistera is the intermediary in which we pay the bond payment to Sistera, and then it goes through to the bondholders. The bondholders are based out of the East Coast. And we stopped paying, the mayor made the decision to stop paying the monthly rent because we can't use the building. And until we can figure out what we're going to do going forward, we needed to stop the hemorrhaging. We needed to stop paying the out of taxpayer dollars and on a building that we can't use. So until we can figure that out and work together to figure that out, we are in this position.
Do you feel more like comfortable doing that? Because like if this was the money you borrowed, like the city borrowed to pay, that not paying would be like bad. That would be like they would downgrade your credit a lot. So this is more literally like a lease that you're stopping to pay. And so does it make the city more comfortable with that sort of hardball action?
Well, I think it makes us more comfortable to know that we're not paying out money, $500,000 a month on a building that we can't use. That's first and foremost.
Right.
2, I will say that when it comes to credit ratings, we did do our due diligence, our bond financing, our bond counsel, our financial team here at the city. We took it very seriously to make sure that wasn't going to happen. And so what I will tell you is that with the bond agencies look at is this because we are incapable of being able to pay it, or is it for another reason? And this is not because we are incapable financially of paying it. It's because we have a legal issue relating to the contract, the lease, and whether we can use the fact that we can't use the building. So because it's not a financial reason that we're not able to pay, we're very very good on our reserves. We have not touched any of our reserves. They're still at the high levels, even with COVID. This is more of a transactional issue and not a financial issue when it comes to the bond rating agents.
There's a couple other things I want to get into, but I have one other thing about this. Like,
is this our last question on 101 Ash?
Yeah, I suppose. But I gotta ask. I mean, isn't this like the like worst? Okay, so it's gonna be 115 million to repair. That's one estimate. Do you accept that estimate, by the way?
No.
You think it could be a lot cheaper to get into there?
Yeah, I do. And let me tell you why. So we brought Kitchell on, who is a construction manager and engineering firm. They went in and did their first preliminary review, and they said, okay, this is what we think it may cost. And you have to understand that 115 million actually built in about 45% contingency. So right now, the council knows that Kitchell and public knows that Kitchell's doing their second phase, where they're really diving into all the systems. The mayor wants to know what is a must-have, what is a recommended, and what's a nice-to-have, right? So making the building LEED certified doesn't necessarily mean that the building, we can't have safe employees and the public there. They're also coming up with construction schedules and how we can get in there quickly and as efficiently as possible and safely. We're going to wait we're going to wait till their next phase of their report before we start accepting numbers in that range.
Okay. Is this the worst part of the mayor's term as mayor? Is this the thing, like you're ranking all the things that went not so great? Would this be the not so greatest?
Oh, yeah, I think that everybody is really disappointed. I mean, keep in mind when this was, I think what's been lost is, and I wasn't here, but I've heard it over and over and over again, is that the reason that we entered into this contractual agreement was to save the taxpayer money, millions of dollars, and to provide a one-stop for all employees to be under one office building in which the city would have owned at the end of the term. And we would have a place that all the city employees, 1,100, could all be a part of, especially with rents constantly in flux downtown and throughout San Diego. The other thing that was really exciting about this opportunity was Development Services Department, one of our most publicly facing departments that actually is at Cobb, and it's way beyond its useful life. And what the point was is to able to get it in a more efficient workspace, which was going to be floors 1 and 2 at 101 Ash, so that they could be a one-stop shop for developers and people who wanted to take out permits to be more efficient with the system. So unfortunately, that has been lost, and that still ultimately is the goal. It's just unfortunately sometimes these things get messy.
Yeah, here's so. Well, that's classic San Diego. We got a lot of renderings. Hopefully, we can actually get it accomplished sometime. Let's switch to another conversation that was a pretty big one. Well, I'll let you pick. Do you want to do franchise fee or sports arena?
You're so nice. You're giving me an option. Why don't we go with sports arena?
All right, sports arena it is. This is interesting. The city owns most of that land around the sports arena.
Yep.
Stills Barbecue, all those places rent those spots. The city let a lot of the leases expire this year, I think, or come close, and thus put out a thing saying to developers, hey, you got an idea what we should do here? We might work with you in a way that you could then propose an official plan to the city council, and the city council could up or down vote it. You asked for people who wanted this opportunity. 2 groups submitted, and you made a choice for one of the groups. Now, that group is called Brookfield. The group that didn't win, not so happy. They had proposed a temporary soccer stadium, a big park, a bunch of other things that they were a music venue, a few things like that. They wanted a temporary soccer stadium so that the San Diego Loyal could get their fan base up, then eventually move to a bigger stadium. They lost. They're pretty upset. They said today you released the scoring that showed them having come in short. Can you give a description about what the plan is with this area and why you made this selection, and then the suggestion that maybe you shouldn't have, and waited for the next mayor to make this call?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start. Those are a lot of questions.
Yeah, sorry, just kept going.
So, and I'm going to try and go fast so you can get to Ashley's birthday dinner. So first and foremost, the mayor started this process years ago, and that's with the Midway Community Plan update that got passed. It also came with a programmatic EIR, so that all the improvements based on what the community plan update says has already been vetted through environmental impact report. So that's been going on for years. The mayor has always had his sights on getting Midway going. We put out an RFP back in February, and we received 2 responsive bids. The RFP specifically lays out the criteria in which the bidders have to go through in order to come out on the other end. And so what it was 2 different review panels. One was the first review panel, which is made up of city staff as well as Jones Lang LaSalle, which are experts in development and financials. We're using a lot of experts these days. And they analyzed the bids. What also the RFP said is if that analyzing of the bids came in with less than 10 points of each other between the 2 bidders, they went to a second round. That second round was actually in-person interview with the panel of city employees as well as Jones Lang LaSalle. They ended up scoring Brookfield higher, and that's why they were the winning bidder. The mayor did not have the ability to pick and choose and say to the scoring, oh, you know what? I don't like them at all. I'm going to go with this. He does not have that ability. He had a choice. 1, start all over, or 2, start negotiations with the selected winning bidder who scored the most points. And also what I want to say is that when it comes to this mayor is going to work until December 10th, 10 a.m., which is what the charter says his term is. And we're not going to be putting off decisions that can be made today. We are very cognizant of what we can get done and what we can't get done. And that we want to make sure that when whoever the next mayor is, that we're going to do a very smooth transition and make sure they're all up to speed on where we are. So we're not stopping. And also the criticism that we have received about going forward and not just leaving this all to the next mayor is the next mayor is going to be able to negotiate the deal with this bidder. And the next city council is the one that's going to be hearing this item and voting up or down. They can do what they can go forward. They can not go forward. We're just trying to tee it all up so that they have something great to work with.
So one of the questions that came back, so the soccer team and David Malmuth, who helped lead the project that didn't win, they said, why did you not include any of the open house results? So there was a big effort to present these ideas to the public and then, collect feedback. And it doesn't appear that that feedback was incorporated into that scoring system.
Well, one, it was incorporated into the scoring system. So
Okay.
there are multiple categories, and each category, from financials to the team, has the team worked together before, renderings, community input. All of those are scored, and actually it is actually outlined, the scoring is outlined in the RFP. And one of the scores is community input. And that is where the community input on the schematics and the concepts of what both bidders were putting out there is incorporated into the scoring. Now, the public did not receive, from community input perspective, they didn't get all the financials, they didn't get all the other levels of detail, but they did get the vision and by both bidders, and that was incorporated into the selection, just as well as, are you financially able to go forward with the bonding and looking at the different financing options? Now,
none of this redevelopment can really happen unless the height limit for the area is removed, excluded for this Midway entire community plan. Right now, the sports arena, for example, is 60 feet. You wouldn't be able to rebuild a new one there without getting an exemption from that. That's Measure E on the ballot. I think it feels like the timing was set in motion so that somebody could be picked before this campaign started so that they could invest in the campaign and help it get over the hump. Is that a fair, logical conclusion? And does that campaign appear to be coming together? Is that something you're going to be working on?
Well, I personally won't be working on the campaign, but the campaign seems to be coming together with there's a community-based driven campaign that's coming together. Measure E is important if the community wants a new sports arena, because whatever version of a new sports arena, which the mayor is very excited about, will be over 30 feet. There's no other way to develop it unless you decided to dig into the ground. So that is very important in order to provide that direction and the decision of whether we get a new sports arena or not.
So is that sports arena real? I go on sports radio a lot, and I've been like constantly telling them that, like, hey, like, cool your jets about the sports arena, because all they're doing is saying, like, yeah, if a bunch of things happen, we could build one. I mean, what is the preliminary, like, what can you actually tell people that could be committed to about a new sports arena with these proposals? With now the winning proposal? Is it likely or just unlikely? It seems pretty a pretty big stretch.
Well, I think that we're closer than we've ever been.
Well, yeah,
sports arena.
Somebody's drawn one, yes.
Yes, well, and nothing has ever been easy around here, right? Convention center expansion, right? We're still working on that. But I do think that it's really important to know that the partners with Brookfield, AEG, which they go by another name now, operates facilities and develops facilities like the sports arena around the globe. They know what they're doing, and they partnered with Brookfield for a reason. So I feel very comfortable that if a deal is able to be negotiated with Brookfield and AEG, that they're going to do everything they can to make sure there's a new sports arena. And keep in mind, AEG operates the current sports arena, and the Gulls are a very popular team locally, and they want to stay in San Diego, and they will need a new facility.
And the Seals too. Can't forget
the Seals too. Yes. How can I forget the Seals?
All right. Before I let you go, I do want to talk about SDG&E. So franchise fee is up. Basically, SDG&E a long time ago made an arrangement with the city that it could do all the lines for power, that it could run those on city streets. That's city property. It gets a deal. It's called a franchise fee, but San Diego ratepayers pay that special fee on their bills, called the franchise fee. That is expiring
Mm-hmm.
Come on, is SDG&E really not going to get it again? It just seems like is that are there really other alternatives, and could they be pulled in? Because that just seems like an amazing potential change for San Diego. Just mind blowing.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind the current franchise agreement that is going to be expiring was in 1970.
Yeah.
And so we are getting ready to put out the RFP. And it's not called an RFP, but I'm going to use that for terms that actually it's ITMB, but let's just say RFP. People understand that more. Is that there are others. Berkshire Hathaway has expressed an interest, and there are other energy and gas companies that are interested in bidding. Now, we will go forward, and I want to share with you all, it's a really interesting, fascinating process that I still have to shake my head about and not sure, is that it specifically states in the charter that we put out the RFP and the respondents submit their bids, and we bring the staff does not open, city staff does not open these bids. We bring them to a public hearing at council in which the bids are opened in front of council, and they are either deemed responsive or not responsive. And then the council has the ability to vote it up or down. The other thing, which is really interesting, is the actual franchise fee, the actual pay for doing having this set of ratepayers. That can be negotiated on the floor. It's a very interesting process. I've never seen anything like it before, so it will be interesting to watch.
You're saying the city council could say, we want you to pay 90 million, and then like SDG&E or Berkshire Hathaway could sit there and say like, no, we're gonna do 50. Like it would be that public.
Yes,
that's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It's like a comet comes by every 60 years, and you get to see that's what the franchise fee agreement is, right? Like it's going to come by like a comet, and we can watch it happen for once. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. San Diego wants potentially the new provider or SDG&E to pay $62 million up front for this. So there is a thought at City Hall that you can get tens of millions of dollars just up front for this.
Well, first of all, I want to back up and say that we did hire and have been retained a outside consultant who understands the energy industry, not mostly in California and with the PUC. It's a really complicated industry, and we just didn't have the inside expertise that we needed. He presented his report on what it should look like, the RFP should look like, to City Council as well as to a committee. He recommended that we should be able to get 62 million. Now, all these things and details are still all being worked out. Once the RFP, the ITMB is released, that's where you'll see the final criteria and recommendations of which a bidder needs to be responsive.
Got it. Wow, huge issue. All right, last point. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Mayor Kevin Faulconer has a little bit of a political edge to him these days. He's getting a lot of attention as a potential. He's trying to position himself as a critic of the way that California is run. Obviously, people have murmured about that's in positioning efforts to get him in position eventually, maybe to run for governor. Now, one of the sort of trends we've seen is that it seems like he's running against California, against this like idea of well, here's a good one. So the power situation, that somehow we've been too reliant, too dependent, too interested in renewable electricity, and that's put our grid at risk. And so he's saying, look, we shouldn't have to deal with this. We should you should manage things better. Is that would you say that's a fair summary of his criticism of the governor?
Well, I think that there's a lot of people that criticize the state of California these days, but there is a bit of a hypocrisy going on when it comes to how do we solve the problems and how did we get there with previous policies. The mayor was a champion, much to everyone's surprise, supported a CCA. and the establishment of a joint powers authority, which is going very well right now.
Just to interrupt real quick, we're talking about the basically the city taking over the responsibility to purchase and find renewable electricity to get us to 100% renewable electricity. He's been on the front, and that's part of my question is like he has totally embraced. In fact, his embrace of this 100% renewable electricity mandate and sort of infrastructure is what's made him partly attractive to people who think he might have a chance to run statewide. And so my question is like, what has he really? Where would he really distinguish himself from what the state has already been doing? Like, what if he's all in on the 100% electricity, then he's not really doing that core concern that was overemphasized.
Well, I mean, let me. You made a comment that in your first part that he is on the energy thing. What is really done? But I want to just back up to an issue that's even one is also greater is the homeless issue. And the homeless issue is in San Diego, we've been able to, the only city that's actually county that's actually reduced its homeless population and has been able to manage that very challenging population through COVID. So you have the environmental issues, you have homeless issues, you have trash issues, you have pandemic issues, you have transparency issues, and you have financial issues. And so it's one of the biggest issues that are going on, but I think there's a long list of problemed issues that in the state of California, in addition to what we're facing with the energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, we already kept you 40 minutes. Do you want to try to take some questions from the audience, or is that be all right?
I'm here at the office, so you've got to get someplace. I'm gonna leave the timing to you.
All right, we had a question. Looks like there was sort of blowback, I guess. Lori Saldana said that you over-policed and undercounted homeless people. I think there's been a concern that the mayor has leaned too heavily on enforcement as opposed to, sort of providing opportunities and housing directly for homeless people. You want to put that in context in your perspective?
Sure. First of all, the city doesn't count homeless. That's the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, which is a countywide the city is a partner with other municipalities within it. The enforcement, the mayor's policy and has been is that it's not humane to let somebody sleep out on the street, period. People say it's humane to make them get off the street, but it's a carrot and a stick approach. We have a bed for you. We have services for you. We have those essential places for you to go. You can't sleep on the street. It's not safe and it's not sanitary. So let us get you to a bed. And if you're not going to, if you're going to refuse services, you can't stay there. You can't sleep on the street. You can't sleep in front of someone's business or in the coves of their houses. And we provide services. That is the most important thing. We're not just saying, hey, get out of here. We are providing a bed, we're providing meals, and we're providing services. Got it.
Well, Ashley and the kids just got back. I better get to work.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I do have Ashley.
Thank you. I do have a bunch of other questions, but so maybe we could do this more regularly, get some more deeper dives into local politics and what you're working on. Aimee Faucett, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. I only come out from behind the curtain for you, Scott.
Oh, good. Thank you. All right.
Bye. Take care.
Cheers. You too. All right. That was Aimee Faucett. Thanks all. Okay. Hey, before I go, PolitiFest this year is coming together. It's really exciting. Megan, who's behind the scenes here, has been doing a great job booking guests. We have mayor's race booked. We've got that East County District 2 county supervisor race booked. We've got the congressional races booked. We've got including Daryl Issa and Amar Campa-Najjar. We've got call me a coward. Come on, man. We've got Encinitas Mayor. We've got so many events coming up, and it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be a great stream, and we're going to be going from the end of September through. So I guess it's September 28th through October 3rd, and great discussions. Go to politifest.org, voicesandiego.org/politifest. That's voicesandiego.org/politifest. Just to be clear, this guy ranting about sewage, we've been covering the sewage more than anyone, I think, in town for the last decade. A lot of great stuff on Voice of San Diego about the Pure Water Project, which is supposed to address his concern and recycle and provide 30% of San Diego's water. So check that out. Pure Water, Voice of San Diego. We got a lot of coverage on that. All right. Sign up for PolitiFest. It's going to be great. Thanks to Aimee Faucett. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you Friday for the Friday 5 at 5.